Good morning. My name is Dakota, and I research student individuality lacked inside of schools. All around America, schools have a variety of rules and regulations that students are expected to follow to obtain a healthy, safe school environment. However, one policy that sticks out is dress code. Administration is telling students what they can and cannot wear based on a list of clothing either on the allowed or prohibited side. This code does not just affect students who wear clothing clearly not intended for an educational setting, but it affects those who practice religions, are of different races or ethnicities, and even the student's gender. It affects the ability for a student to freely express themselves even when it does not hurt anyone around. Although schools encourage their students to think for themselves or create their own character, this becomes difficult when guidelines prevent this. At times, school systems present it as though they care more about how a student is dressed rather than the material being taught. Students need diversity in their lives to prevent prejudice and let them be more open and acceptable to others and themselves. In the stimulus material, sources that stuck out were the namesake article and the ultra-fast fashion article. Those sources had a common theme, which was about individuality and how it is hard for students to express themselves if they think others will judge. With this, and a strong opinion that dress codes are unfair to the student population, I produced the question, to what extent do schools in the United States not value their students' individuality? As quoted by Dakota W, I think a lot of people lost respect for the individual. The individual, the person who doesn't conform. What exactly is conformity? As stated by Dr. Sal McLeod, a professional psychology teacher assisting at the University of Manchester, conformity is a type of social influence involving a change in belief or behavior in order to fit in with the group. What exactly is dress code? As stated in the Oxford English Dictionary, dress code is a set of rules usually written and specifying specific required manner of dress in a school, club, restaurant, or etc. For example, the Effingham County Dress Code lists that sundresses with open backs and tank tops are not allowed for middle and high school students. However, this is lifted for elementary students. This is saying that because a student has matured and hit puberty, it is now unacceptable to wear these things. Based upon this comparison graph made by Alyssa Pavlakis and Rachel Rogman in an article published in the Phi Delta Kappan, a professional journal for educators, you can see the comparison between white males and females in relation to black males and females. For example, white and black females have almost the same number of students out of code. However, black females are far more cited than white. There are a variety of cases where students are betrayed by the schools and punished for expressing themselves. Court cases throughout the years are an effective way to show how this issue has and has not affected and changed with time. In 1965, students wore black armbands in order to protest the Vietnam War. This is known as the Tinker v. Des Moines Independent Community School District Court case. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the school in 1969. According to David Hudson Jr., an assistant professor of law at Belmont and author who specializes in First Amendment rights and issues, states that, writing for the majority, Justice Abe Fortas stated that it can hardly be argued that either students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. He focused on the fact that school officials could point to no evidence that this would disrupt school activities. This case took place in the mid-1900s, and yet these challenges are still being brought up. The BH&KM Easton Area School District Court case occurred in 2010 through 2013. This goes to show how times have not changed. Two students wore these armbands to protest to help raise awareness for breast cancer. They said, "I heart boobies, keep abreast." The students were told to take off the bracelets but returned to them to school the following day and were suspended. Sheldon McCurry Stokes, Doctor of Law from the University of North Carolina School of Law, states, "The Keep Abreast Foundation is a nonprofit organization committed to eradicating breast cancer. The foundation's mission is to provide support programs for young people impacted by cancer and educate people about prevention, early detection, and cancer-causing toxins." The court ended up ruling in favor of the students after many attempts. It was argued that the school was taking away the students' First Amendment right. Freedom of speech and expression is vital to everyday challenges and decision-making as students transition through life. Students around the country are expected to conform to administration policies, but at the expense of their individuality. Schools often do not talk about the diverse backgrounds a student may have inside the classroom. This may make students who come from foreign places, who have distinct cultures and religions, scared to express their true self. An example of this is Gokul from the Namesake story. In the stimulus material, according to the excerpt, it states, "At times he wishes he could disguise it, shorten it somehow, the way the other Indian boy in his school, Jayadev, had gotten people to call him Jay. Boys his age had begun to court girls already, but he could not imagine saying, 'Hi, it's Gokul.'" Students are influenced to be like each other when conformity is not always the best option. When students are being forced to abide by school dress code policies that prevent individualism, they are not able to think for themselves. Every day, there are new clothing designs being produced that become the top trend fashions. Students wanting to show off their style purchase them and wear them to school where administration finds something wrong with the outfit, whether the tank top has too thin of straps, the shirt shows too much chest, or the words on the shirt are distracting. The stimulus provided a source of fast fashion that clearly demonstrates how it fits young children. It states that Jinshuk Chang reviewed as many as 400 new designs a day. Shopping for fast fashion was exciting, there was always something new. Decision making is a crucial part of life. As well, students need to think for themselves, plan, and problem solve, but this is quite difficult when this issue prevents this. Therefore, if a student's style does not harm others, students should be able to express themselves freely without punishments. There are 3 solutions to this issue. The first being teaching teachers about diverse backgrounds that a student may have when entering the classroom. Although this would allow for students to be more comfortable with themselves, this wouldn't help the dress code aspect. And who is to say that teachers are practicing this in their classroom? The second option is to lift all dress code. While this would let students wear whatever they want freely, this can be taken way out of proportion. The best option for this issue is to have a section in dress code that explicitly states that students who practice religions are of different race, who have beliefs that do not hurt anyone around, and different genders are allowed to wear what makes them individual. Wearing a hijab, having different hairstyles that are important to your race or culture, showing what you believe in should not get students in trouble daily. This issue has started many years ago and still is not resolved like it should be. Students deserve to show how they are different. Thank you.
There was 1 second to spare. Okay. All right, oral defense. All right, 2 questions. The first one is about your research process. My question is, did your research go in a different direction than you originally expected?
My research did not go in a different way than I originally expected, but it did. I added things to it. So originally I was going to do the bias between gender and dress code policy until I finally researched more about how race and religion can be impacted for this. So it didn't actually change, but it advanced.
Cool. All right, next question is, what additional questions emerged from your research and why are those questions important?
Additional questions that emerged from my research question was, is every single characteristic that a student has, does that create a more bias when they're being dress coded? Like whether their hair color or how they look, does that matter when they're being dress coded just like race or religion or gender does? And I think that's important because if a person is dress coded for everything that they look like, then that's a really big problem in our community.
All right, excellent job.